right before I accepted it, they were like, well, if the FAA calls you tomorrow, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to take that job. I didn't go to school for 4 years to become an air marshal.
That was our guest for today's show, Bret Bergman, talking about what happened right before he got the offer to become an air traffic controller. He's also talking about the founding of his company, Sleeves for Trees, which you can find at sleevesfortrees.com. I want you to pay special attention to how Bret makes success easy. He has a dream, and he's able to make slight modifications on his dream so that he's able to make progress and get somewhere close to what he sets out, and he ultimately makes it happen. Just a fantastic story. Great friend. Enjoy today's show. Welcome to the Engineering Emotions and Energy Podcast. I am your host, Justin Wink, and today I have a guest with me, Bret Bergman, founder of Sleeves for Trees. Sleeves for Trees. First step of podcasting, know the name of the company of the person that you're having on. Sleeves for Trees. I was thinking about the shirt you just gave me, and I was like, well, if only I could look at it, but I'm wearing the shirt, so I can't see that it says Sleeves for Trees embedded in a really cool bear design. So there's definitely some stuff I want to ask, but first, where did the ideas for your designs come from? Because I believe you're literally following your dreams, if I remember correctly.
Well, I mean, the designs themselves just come from a place where I originally started the design to kind of reformat, those chintzy little, like, tourist places you go to, in San Francisco down at the piers, and you're like, hey, I really need to get someone a souvenir, and you're paying like $15-20 for this shirt. And yeah, it's the thought that counts, but it's like, it's a way where you give the gift and then they wash the shirt once and it's cracked and faded and it was like in the garbage, or you donate it or whatever you do with an old shirt. And I wanted to redesign those shirts to be more durable, where people would actually be happy to wear them and they would last more than one wash. So I went with this whole design of doing these greetings from and doing like the take of those old retro postcards. And it was like greetings from San Francisco or San Diego or New York. And I had all these city lines up. And then I had the epiphany that I was like, what's going to happen is I'm just going to walk into one of these shops and try to sell these shirts to them. And they're just going to be like, thanks, and rip them off and change them by 10%. And there went my business. So right. I went and talked to a marketing and advertising friend of mine, and he agreed. He said, yeah, they literally have the computers and the printers in the back. They'll take one of your samples, they'll reformat it, by 10% and tell you thanks a lot and for the new design and just totally rip it off. So he says, all original art is a better way to go. So I literally had to just scrap that whole line and kind of reformat the direction that I was going. And so when I went and was doing the research on, well, if I'm trying to do more sustainable clothing, I guess, then it became, well, what kind of material and what kind of textiles go into making more sustainable clothing? And that came to the junction of, well, like, here's the most sustainable textiles: bamboo, hemp, organic cotton. And then it goes down the list of like linen, which is made from flax seeds. I didn't know that, but flax seeds are way more profitable than actually destroying the plant and making clothes out of. So, and linen is not like that comfortable of a clothing. It's kind of rough, And
yeah, so that's why a linen shirt is both expensive and not so comfortable.
Yeah, it's really wrinkled. So that's why you don't wear linen shirts. And same thing kind of for hemp or jute, where it's very durable.
What was that last one? Jute?
Jute, yeah.
I've not heard of jute.
It's like almost like a twine. They make a lot of twine and ropes with jute.
Oh, right.
And bags. Like if you get those reusable bags, those a lot of times are jute. But it's got that rough consistency of rope. But that's why you have to take hemp, and you can't really make 100% hemp shirt without mixing it with cotton, organic cotton, and softening it up a little bit. So when I went down the road of, okay, scrap the city lines and the greetings from, and let's go into making.
I kind of want to like pause, and I want to back up, because you're sounding like a professional in the garment business, which you 100% have not been up until maybe, I don't know, since you started getting into this. But one of the reasons I think that you're going to be super of interest to my audience looking at how to find fulfillment in their everyday lives is your day job is as a flight traffic controller, right?
Yeah, I'm an air traffic controller. I work for the FAA, and it's one of those things where I've been doing it for about 13 years now, and I love my job. It's a great job, but I also have time outside of my job where I don't have any emails to answer to when I get off of work. It's I go to work, I control planes, I train, and train all the new controllers that are coming in there. And at the end of the day, there's no one to answer to. I don't have any homework when I get home.
Right.
So
was this like, how did you get into air traffic control? Was this like when you were a kid, something you always wanted to do, or did you stumble on it?
I've always been fascinated with flight and flying, and I loved, we had an air show in my town as a kid down in South Florida, and that was like the highlight of my weekend every year it came to our town. I'd sit up on my roof or go down to the beach and watch it all weekend long. And when I was about 16 years old, I was sitting around one summer, and my mom was like, you can't sit around all summer. I was like, oh, well, I'm going to hang out with my friends later today. She's like, no, I actually booked you a discovery flight down at the local airport we had down there. And I was like, oh, I'm not really interested. That doesn't sound very interesting or cool.
And you were how old? It was
like 16. Yeah. I remember I had my license, and this was before the age of like MapQuest and really, finding the directions. But she's like, writes down on a piece of paper. She's like, go here. Yeah. Here's the phone number if you get lost, and drive down to the airport and find this flight school. So I was like, all right, I'm not really interested, but I'll do it since you've already like paid for it and booked it. So I go down there, and it's just like a basic discovery flight. You go up with a flight instructor, and he shows you how to like prep the airplane and get in it. And then, you get airborne, and he lets you like take the controls a little bit, and then you fly around the airspace. And I want to say it was like an hour and a half, just flying around. And we flew over the ocean a little bit and came back in and, did some touch and goes. And then afterwards I was just hooked. I was just like, wow, this is like amazing.
Just aviation in general. You're just like, this is my world.
It's like the freedom of like, exploring other than the surface of the planet, which was cool because I actually got my scuba license when I was 14 years old. And when I discovered that, I was like, it's like a whole nother planet down there, it's a whole new world. And that became what flight became to me. But obviously, like, I couldn't afford it. And my mom was at the point where she's like, let's ask your grandpa if he could do it. And I talked to my grandfather about it, and he was always very supportive about doing other extracurricular things. And so he offered to pay for the flight training, and it took about a year to do because I was still in high school, and I was kind of just doing it on the weekends, and I was working on the weekends too. But yeah, I got that, and then since aviation was kind of my path in life at that time, I applied to Embry-Riddle, which is the top flight schools in the world, and that's in Daytona or Prescott, and I wanted to stay in Florida, so I just applied for the Daytona Beach campus, and I got accepted into there, and had aviation as my major to become a professional airline pilot. And I think it was like my first semester in there, 9/11 happened, and I just kind of reevaluated things because the school is not cheap as a private university.
Yeah.
And I kind of just talked to a bunch of other people and some friends and people I knew that were in the industry, and all the airlines were basically going under. And my friends were like, yeah, my parents lost their pension and that were pilots, and I don't have a job now, and no, it was not a good time for the aviation industry, and I was just getting started.
Yeah, it's like, do I want to start in something that looks like at the time it's like, hey, is this going to be the end of flight as we know it, or what's going to happen? I kind of remember that very uncertain time.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know the exact number, but I'm sure it took over 10 years for the airlines to even start recovering after 9/11. But I switched my major, and I said, well, I don't want all this debt, and flight school debt is double than just the debt you're going to incur from getting a bachelor's degree of
so compared to any
science.
bachelor's, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I switched my majors, went undecided, I think, for a year, and then got into the air traffic management program there. Stuck with it, finished my degree there, and at the time, there was only really two ways to get into the air traffic control industry through the FAA, at least. And that was either prior military or going through what's called a college training initiative, which is the CTI school, which my university qualified for. And then they basically just put your name in the bucket, and you just wait for a call. You take the
So did
test.
you know your university qualified, or did you just kind of like, you got lucky?
No. I want to say at the time there was only about a dozen schools that actually qualified for it, but
you kind of got lucky that you happened to go to a school that.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that was at the time when you were going through the process. You definitely
it was highly
knew.
likely that if it was good for aviation to fly, it was also good for air traffic control.
You knew that school was one of the ones that the FAA accepted. I mean, there was some of my friends that actually, when they made the switch they switched to other colleges that weren't as expensive to go to, because they could transfer their credits and all that over to the other universities. And the other universities were you could do it in a year and a half, but I was already 3/4 of the way through. I think it was about a junior at that time. And I was happy living in Daytona and staying where I was. So I just stuck it out, and I got my bachelor's degree. A lot of people that switched to the other schools didn't get they just got an associate's in it. So
okay.
Yeah.
So you got it. So you got in, what is it? Is it a license, or what's the process?
So once you get accepted by the FAA, they actually put you through quite a battery of tests, which are like psychological tests. And then you have to do physical ones, like you would go if you went into the military. We have to get the same medical requirements that professional pilots do as well. So we, get hooked up to EKG machines and just making sure we're fit for duty, basically. So yeah, you do the tests.
Because I gotta say, when I heard that you were air traffic controller, it was one of those like, well, he doesn't look at. I don't know. I think I had this assumption that air traffic control would sort of be like how you picture somebody that's into radio, a bit of you're just sitting all day. So, but yeah, Bret works out. Like he is in shape. So if you go like, oh yeah, he could be military or something like that for sure. So, but it's sort of like you think of, it's mentally taxing and you have to have a in shape body. So it totally makes a lot of sense that would sort of be a requirement to get in. And then I don't know. I'm guessing you've chosen to keep it up. I don't know if all your coworkers necessarily. I'm sure all your coworkers are great, but I'm sure you've met people across the years that maybe not.
Yeah, I think it's a whole new generation because from what I hear, the controllers in the 70s and 80s, when it was still acceptable, that they were just like the typical drinking coffee, and they could smoke in their facilities too, all day. Yeah. And it was one of those things where they were wearing white collared shirts with black ties and just smoking and drinking coffee all day. So the times have changed. I think the younger generation knows, keeping your mind fit as well as your body is just as important. So yeah, I think it's just a different generation.
So what I think is like pretty cool is that effectively your teenage boyhood dream, you made it come true. Like there's people that have dreamed of having, you know, the type of job that you currently do. And I feel like my situation was also somewhat similar because it was probably when I was about 15 or 16, I worked doing computer repair, and I was like, oh man, I would love to someday be able to design the stuff that goes into these. And, you know, got my degrees in electrical engineering, and then finally got to work for a company that does. And then there's a little bit, once the dream is true, eventually you kind of want more. Like it's the satisfaction starts to kind of, I don't know, it kind of goes away, and it's like, well, what's next? And I'm just curious, how much of that's been there for you, because this is kind of not your first entrepreneurial endeavor. Like I've seen you and your wife Genevieve kind of, making a go at various side hustles and things like that. And just, has that been, because we've only known each other, only a little bit over 5 years now.
Right.
And I don't know, it's probably most of how much I've known you guys kind of like, all right, well, maybe we can try this. Maybe we can try this little thing.
Sure.
Anything to sort of, and I don't know, maybe that, when you were first getting into it, sticks in your mind of, hey, this whole aviation thing, something big could happen and you never know what, and all of a sudden, time to take care of yourself. Or feeling overwhelmed by the daily grind? Imagine if you could pause, reset, and truly connect with a calmer, more fulfilled you. It's not just a dream, it's absolutely possible. Hi, I'm Justin, and I invite you to discover the life-changing techniques in my book, Engineered to Love. Right now, I'm offering a free chapter complete with guided audios that have already helped so many people find peace amidst the chaos. These aren't just any techniques. They're transformative practices designed to help you love yourself and engage deeply with the present moment, without even having to close your eyes to the world around you. So join us at engineeredtolove.com/sample and access your free guided session. It's time to bust the busyness and embrace the joy, ease, and love in your everyday life. Don't wait. Start your journey to a more relaxed and recharged you today, because you deserve to live a life you love. Visit engineeredtolove.com/sample. See you there.
Yeah, going back on the childhood dreams, like the childhood dream was to be a professional pilot and keep up and flying with that, which I have not done because it's quite expensive to do and keep up that. It's a very expensive hobby.
Yeah.
But the great thing is like I said, I get to go home every night. I'm not traveling. I'm not living out of a suitcase. But, pilots do have good jobs because they get paid really well and they actually get almost half the month off. They've got a lot of downtime too, which, they do have the time to do like entrepreneurial things in their side.
Yeah.
But yeah, my wife and I, we actually, when we met, yeah, that's funny. I guess from the beginning, we've always kind of just had this entrepreneurial spirit to us. And we started in our early 20s. We own like a online pet boutique company and, set up a booth at the locals farmers market down there. And
it's like you'd make products for animals or something like.
Yeah, this was before actually, the big like dressing your dog up was a thing.
Uh-huh.
So she had a good mentor and a good person that she worked for that owned a very successful dog costume company. And that translated into her having like a little boutique store in the local downtown we had there in Orlando. And then we took it to like, after that store had closed, we took most of that inventory and we turned it into, our business. And we had done that for a while, even when we moved out here for my job, because I had not been hired by the government yet, and they didn't give me my position out here yet. And so we were still doing that on the side, and I was doing other little side gigs here and there, just to kind of pay my loans and get by. It took me about 1.5 years to actually get hired by the government after I left college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could probably write a cool book on what air traffic controllers do between the time they, get out of college and then they actually get hired. It's pretty funny. A lot of my friends had some really unique jobs.
So you got to do something, but then you got to be, you pretty much got to be ready to go when they say yes?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was not I actually at the time, because it was obviously post 9/11, I actually was like, well, maybe I should just get into the government. And I actually applied to be a U.S. Marshal on airplanes. And I actually got the interviews and got job offers, but then right before I accepted it, they were like, well, if the FAA calls you tomorrow, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to take that job. I didn't go to school for 4 years to become an air marshal, which would be a cool job, I think. But yeah, I was doing, little jobs. I was a lifeguard at Disney resorts for a while. What else did I was a poker dealer and
poker dealer.
Yeah. Genevieve was a manager at a bar.
So was this in Florida? Or was
this
in
Orlando before we moved out. So we had the pet business, and then we on the side she was a bartender and a bar manager, and the local bar did like these hosting poker tournaments, and just when I was between like being a lifeguard, I had quit that, and then I was a server at that restaurant, and then the company that came in, they offered me a job to do that, and then one of the patrons there was he was a regular every week, and him and his wife and family all came to these tournaments, and they were great people, and he offered me a job just doing deliveries for his print business. So I was kind of just like all over the place, and then I did that until we left and moved out to Palo Alto for my first job out to be an air traffic controller at a tower there. So
that's so cool. So it's kind of like you had sort of this just random stuff coming up, and it seemed like your mindset just like, sure, I'll try that. I can do that. Whatever. Like I'll go I'll deal cards of poker. I'll drive. Sure. Yeah, whatever. Marshall, let me give it.
It was weird. I don't think I ever actually like applied for a job other than the lifeguard or at Disney World.
Stuff just came up.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. It was kind of like, I think just at the time where, it wasn't necessarily like who you knew or connections. It was kind of just, you went out and had this crowd of people, and I think people just appreciated like either our work or our ethics, and just kind of just offered us jobs. Yeah, it was nice.
I mean, some people, they'll come to me asking for, resume or interview stuff, and I always try to point out like you're always interviewing. Like there's always a job being making or broken whenever you're interacting with anybody. You never know who's got something for you, so just kind of roll through life like you're always putting your best foot forward, because you never know when that person might have the perfect thing for you. Like it never starts and it never stops.
Yeah, it was funny. We were out at a birthday party the other night, and it was Genevieve's friend's birthday. It was her manager over at Lifetime, and one of the girls that I was talking to over there, she actually happened to be a landscape design artist, and obviously knows all about horticulture and landscaping and all that other stuff. And I had kind of told her what I was doing with my company, because this was a whole other subject that we had got on. But like you said, I said, well, if you can design a seed ball for me that is good in all climate zones, I'd like to offer, a seed ball to be planted to go along with my products. But I don't want to send like a palm tree to Alaska or an invasive species to someone.
You don't want to send garbage or
I want to make
destructive.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to just be sending, invasive species to wrong climate zones. So she had suggested, I could do that. And I was like, well, if that's something you're interested in, do that. It could be a good side job for you. And so she had thought about it, and we talked about it. I gave her my card, and it would be something I would like to offer with my shirt, because, the Sleeves for Trees, and it's like we want to promote planting more trees and the conservation of the earth. And if I can send one person a seed ball for every order, it's
like,
kind of
make it real, not just
it's like we can donate,
abstract it away.
We can donate all the portion of our profits to these organizations that do it, but it's one thing to do that, but it's another thing to go out and like plant trees on the weekend, or sending a seed ball along with your orders and getting somebody to be actually involved and interactive other than financially, to plant a tree. So
so I think this definitely brings it back to Sleeves for Trees and
Sure.
how we got to. So where does the Sleeves for Trees mission come from? Like, because I've talked to you, you got the passion, the drive. Like, I know you've been up late working on the website, and we've had a little back and forth.
Right.
I'm really good at breaking websites.
Yeah, it was good. I actually was doing it the other night. I was like, I feel like Justin. Like, I think, I was actually kind of tweaking things and trying to find things, as you say, to break it. So the mission basically came from, and I wanted to make it as full circle as possible, because if you have this mission and you're like, well, I want to sell these shirts that are more durable, right? But then like when you go, the majority of apparel now is polyester and rayon and all these synthetic fabrics. And then you look at it and they're actually not that great for the environment.
I guess they're durable, but to environmental detriment, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean
they can last a good amount of time before falling apart, but I'm guessing when it becomes trash, it's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, I mean after a while they start pilling and breaking down and whatnot, but the process to go into these fake synthetics is you're using fossil fuels, petroleum, and to do it, as opposed to if you're just chopping up like a hemp plant or bamboo or organic cotton, which I have found are the most right now eco-friendly, eco-sustainable plants to do this with. You're not producing microplastics. You're not using fossil fuels to produce them, other than the manufacturing plants that are using that electricity to power
right
them.
So I guess that ends up being the next thing to worry about is
the power
sources,
like,
and the net zero carb.
I can't just ask the manufacturer, hey, can you guys switch all over to green electricity? And it's got to be hydro, wind, and solar. Yeah, I mean that's the next step.
Once you get big enough, you can ask them to do whatever you want.
Right. So that's the thing is, there's always going to be gaps that need to be filled, obviously. But right now we're sticking with the bamboo, the hemp, and the organic cotton, which doesn't need any pesticides to grow, any adverse chemicals. And so when these other companies are trying to give back or say, hey, we're gonna give these donations to these conservation or .orgs that are for the betterment of the planet, but they're using polyester clothes, it doesn't really like speak volumes. And I don't think the consumer really is informed about that. And I think that's when I wanted to bring it full circle, was like, okay, if you want to donate or be a part of this, you have to know like what these other companies are doing or what their mission is. And my mission was not only to provide the resources and the money to donate to these conservations that I felt like were actually making a difference. They were all handpicked. They weren't just like, hey, what are the top conservation societies and who can I donate them to? They were all researched and picked personally by myself, which I felt like were actually...
What's one of your favorites?
Right now, I mean, like Arbor Day is great. I think I have like a special connection to the Sierra Club because I don't know if it runs in my DNA, but my grandfather was a lobbyist. And he lived in Washington, D.C. He actually helped get the Sierra Club founded and started through Congress. Yeah. So it kind of became like, well, that's, going to be one of the ones at the top of my list.
And it's in the Bergman blood.
Yeah, well, it's actually on my mom's side. I definitely feel like there's a connection there with the Sierra Club and what they represent and are doing right now with conservation. But yeah, so through all the research that I've done, it just brought me to, okay, let's make an eco-friendly clothing line, U.S. based, so we're not importing and doing excessive carbon emissions importing from over the seas, and just manufacturing it all here in the United States as well.
So it sounds like you've dialed in sort of your personal values and made them your company's values of sustainability, doing the right thing, and helping out. And it's kind of fascinating because I was recently doing like an exercise of, how to find your personal values. And then basically it's like once you really know what your personal values are and you make that your company's value, that's your company's stand. And then the stand becomes your brand. And then that's what you stand for. And maybe it's not for everybody, but for who it is, they're going to love you because it's clear what you're all about. And then decisions, well, maybe the decision is simple, but actually doing it doesn't sound, it sounds like you had to make some tough choices, but, where it's just like, well, I can't go for the cheapest, on-demand printer for t-shirts. I got to do some work and some things so that it actually lines up with your values, which it doesn't look, but I don't know, for you, is there an alternative actually? Now that you know what you're all about.
So yeah, that's what became, I wouldn't say the toughest part, because like it was all just a process, right? You can't just go out one day and say, you know what, I'm going to start this eco-friendly organic apparel company. And it's got to be simple to do. Because it was simple, I think people that really wanted to do it would do it. But I really at first kind of started with the artwork. I wanted to have the artwork be something that resonated with people. And it's kind of cool that I've seen the progression of the artwork and this fantastic artist I've been using, where she's able to put like my visions and my story on paper. And it's kind of cool how I see that the art has now become a story. It's not only a story for our brand, but a story of, the earth and how to take care of it better. And I think the mission actually became, we're all not perfect. No one's perfect, and we can't ever create like the perfect product. So you kind of have to not necessarily justify that, but you have to do it as well as possible and
Right.
as transparent as possible. And that's where it came to realizing that you want to make this product that's eco-friendly, eco-sustainable, and you also want to make a product that people want to buy too, because if it doesn't resonate with them, then I don't really have anything. Mm-hmm. And that's what I wanted it to do was resonate, and in the sense of, hey, this guy's got this mission, he's got these clothes to back it up with, and the art is pretty good too. So so I wanted everything to just kind of, just like I said, be full circle, and that's where we came up with where we're at today. But yeah, by no means there was a simple way to do it. Yeah, like you could there's great print on demand companies out there.
Yeah.
And you could literally just upload your artwork and connect your website and your store to them, and they'll print, process, and ship all of your orders. You don't even have to physically see or touch or do anything with the product. They'll do it all for you.
Yeah.
And they're the middleman, and they'll take quite a bit of a cut. But what I realize with these print on demand companies is no one offers organic. So I can't use them. So then
I'm guessing after all the research, you kind of understand why they don't.
Well, I don't know.
They don't yet. It's not simple yet.
Yeah,
right?
So maybe that's my next venture is starting print on demand with only organic companies, where I actually found some threads online where people are like, you know what, I'm going to leave this thread open because somebody will do it someday. And I think it just goes back to the mission of the company is like, well, somebody will plant some trees someday, or somebody will do something about the excess of carbon emissions. But I think if everybody has that mentality, like who's going to be that somebody? And we have great visionaries out there that are doing it. And, but I think until like the fossil fuel industries really wake up to, instead of investing the money in the propaganda against climate change, they'll maybe start putting that money into being like, okay, maybe we are the problem, and maybe we should, spearhead this instead of fighting it. It's like the tobacco industry, like, they fought it for so long, but now they actually have to like have government incentives, and X amount of their money has to go to cross, promote their product of why smoking's bad for you. It's like they actually have to pay for advertisements against their product, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're at that level with the fossil fuel companies right now, but
I mean, even without it, just I think we're seeing it, in terms of different types of eating, where the low fat, high sugar that was sort of the craze of, I don't know, was it late 90s, early 2000s? It was a utter health failure. We're starting to get keto and paleo
Right.
and vegan, and we're seeing, because there is money going that way, that the big companies are going, oh, I guess I better have a keto product, a paleo product, a vegan product. It's not always perfect, but the power of the pocketbook and of educating the consumer.
Right.
So I love this concept of like, well, I'm not going to wait for someone else to do it. Let me come up with a way. And I kind of like how part of it's you're educating people about, the different fabrics and, what the true cost might be. And, if you do create that demand, then you don't have to wait for anything to happen to the fossil fuel companies or whatever. They'll just sort of naturally start to happen, and then it's unstoppable, kind of like these other industries that as you've mentioned.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it just starts out on a local scale. I don't know how long ago it was. It took like local cities to ban single-use plastic bags, right? And some people fought it and were like, oh, this is stupid. Like, why would I ever do that? But you know what? It's great. Every time I go to a store, I see people with their reusable bags, and I was like, it's working. And that's on just like a small scale, right? But if you bring that to now it's a state mandate, and now it's a country mandate, and now it's the whole continent's doing it, then it just takes that. You have to start things on a small level, and hopefully it reverberates and people realize it. And I think one of the biggest things I'm seeing now that I've started this company is like single-use plastic is actually kind of one of the most horrific things we're doing right now. It's like, I don't know when you were a kid, but I never drank water out of a plastic bottle. It was just out of the water fountain at the park, or, you went home or to a friend's house and got a drink of water.
Yeah, it was like maybe it was a thick plastic water jug, maybe, that you would bring. And there wasn't the you drink water every 10 seconds like it is now. It's you could go, an hour or two without water, and then just go to a drinking fountain, just put your mouth over that fixture and just suck it. No, that's you don't put your mouth over the fixture.
Yeah, so I think if people can have the mentality now and just like, hey, next time you go to, the Quickie Mart and you want to just run in there and grab a drink, maybe just make sure it's glass or aluminum, I think those are better alternatives. Or just bring your hydro flask or whatever, Yeti. I don't know what the other brands are, but just bring your reusable water bottle with you and fill it up. Water's free, So
and
it
glass,
tastes good.
Glass, it comes from sand. If you've ever been to a beach, there's plenty of that. And what's interesting is that the container can impact flavor. The Germans know this, because I know German beer, for the most part, the good German beer is all in glass. Like
in glass, yeah.
Yeah, I think only the cheapest of garbage they might put in aluminum cans. Otherwise, it's got to be glass. Otherwise, it's no good.
Yeah, and not only that, some of those cans are actually lined with plastic or BPA, so it doesn't break down the aluminum. So it's it's not always the best alternative. But yeah, glass is probably better. But obviously, the number one is just bringing your own reusable bottle. So yeah.
So what's next for Sleeves for Trees? So I know the website's recently launched, sleevesfortrees.com. We'll make sure we put that in the show notes.
Okay.
So that's up. You're shipping orders. what's sort of the next thing you gotta, is it getting the word out, or what's the next big challenge?
Yeah, right now
as you grow this new business.
Right now it's definitely just getting the word out. I just hired a marketing and advertising team, and we're going to start doing paid promotions and ads on social media, and just kind of getting the name and the word out there. Maybe try to find some influencers to help promote it and spread the message. Yeah.
So say it's 10 years from now, looking back, what would you like the story of sleevesfortrees.com to have been?
I think right now, I don't know if we were talking about this off the air before, but
or 3 to 5 years. 10 years is too long.
Yeah, I like 3 to 5.
Let's do 3 to 5.
I like 3 to 5 year goals.
I'm gonna make this a recurring thing that we'll see. I think
hopefully in 3 to 5 years I can come back and we can look back on where it is. But one is just really just building the brand. Yeah. Obviously you're not going to go viral overnight, and I think it's one of those things where you're not going to be the next Nike or Adidas or whatever else, but really building a brand and having a good mission and actually following through with that and keeping to sustainable practices will be important. I by no means am going to sell out and make my products, cheaper and import them from, somewhere that I can get it for a fraction of the price. I want to really keep to the roots of being a US based company. I want to try to cut down on our carbon emissions as low as possible. The main thing is try to get neutral to zero, or actually negative carbon footprint. And by doing that, it's taking the proper initiatives of, if this was your carbon impact, which there are companies can verify that and run their analytics, and this is how many trees we were able to plant this year, to really offset that. That would be just mainly the main goal is just stick to our roots and what we want to represent, but also getting the name out there and getting the message out there of, hey, there's better alternatives. Like, those clothes that you're buying is just what's called fast fashion. And they actually have, the textile industry right now has one of the top carbon emissions, negative footprint, as just through the entire supply chain, from the manufacturers to the shipping to then what happens when it doesn't sell and has to go somewhere else. And it's waste too, because they actually produce a lot of waste when it's a bad run of print, or something is off about it. That all just goes either, hopefully they recycle it, but some companies just dump it. Right. It's a total waste. So we try to cut that down as much as possible in just our design and how we can produce it, and not be wasteful. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. So what happens if there's the sloppy seconds? Is that
the misprints? So right now, my wife and kids and I are all wearing the misprints. So yeah, it's still a way for me to advertise the company, and yeah, but obviously we'll donate them or try to get that. And I think the process that I'm using right now is it's a very small percentage of what gets wasted or misprinted, or, they make great.
You guys got your flow down now.
They make great gifts too, So, yeah.
That's right. Arbor Day is just around the corner, right? So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know when. I think it's March.
I think it's March? In April.
Yeah. Somewhere. Yeah. It's February as we record this. So.
Yeah. So March, I think next month we're looking at the night sky day where people are supposed to turn their lights off so we can actually see the stars for once, because it's very hard for inner city people to see the stars with all the light pollution.
I've read there's more than six stars in the sky. Someday I would like to see those.
There's quite a few more. If you ever have the chance to see them, it's spectacular. We got the chance a couple years ago. We were camping in the middle of Nevada, and it was the best light show you've ever seen in your life.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I heard parts of West Texas actually have some of the best night skies in the nation. So there's absolutely nothing out there.
So go out, see the stars in West Texas.
Yeah, well, there's other places too, but it's phenomenal to see what's really up there if you actually live in rural parts of the country.
So maybe that's the next thing for Bret. He's done scuba underwater. He's done surface driving. He's done the sky. So space is the next frontier. Once Sleeves for Trees takes off, great success. Yeah, I mean, pretty amazing story, Bret. Any last words?
Nothing. I mean, just buy local, buy organic, and just be more mindful before you make that next purchase, whether it's your clothes, your drink, or your food. So
I think that's fantastic advice. Be a little mindful and maybe make a slightly different choice, because sometimes just tweaking just a few percent gets you big benefits, not just now, but for the future of yourself and your community. So if you want to hit me up, go to justinwink, wenck.com. You can find me on Facebook, and then of course find Bret's Sleeves for Trees, sleevesfortrees.com. I'll be sending a link. Thank you, Bret, for being here. It's great talking to you.
All right, thank you for having me. And Sleeves for Trees on social media as well. So,
all right, good day, everybody.